Good morning and welcome to this week's recruitment discussion with Jump. And this week we're looking at, you are talented recruiters, but can you recruit talent for yourself? We get lots of conversations about, we can't find talent, etc. And recruitment agencies, live and grow by the quality of the staff that they recruit. But the shortage of potential employers across all industries says that finding talent is even harder than it was before. So, as always, I'm going to look at some stats about recruitment, before we sort of go into the questions. The top 5 recruitment priorities of recruitment professionals in 2021 was to improve the quality of the hires internally, increase internal retention rates, and improve the time to hire by 23%, and grow their talent pipeline 22%, and grow diversity hiring by 22%. 77% of recruiters go back to hiring candidates who do not appear to fit. After finding a job opening, 64% of candidates say they research the company online, and 37% said they will move on to another job if they cannot find information about the company. Job seekers are willing to sacrifice up to 12% of their salary for training and flexibility. That came from PwC. And 49% of respondents decline a job offer because of a poor recruitment process. 73% of job applicants say that they would only apply to a company who has similar values to them, and a bad hire can result in a drop of 32% of employee morale and 30% drop in productivity. 52% of new hires are actively looking for a new job within the first 6 months of taking on their new job. Candidates are recommended to apply to 2 or 3 jobs online daily, and the median age of work or workers is 42. We then start to think about Gen Z, and according to one online survey by the UK Recruiter, Gen Z look for, and this is no order of preference, modern tech in the company, personal interaction in the company, health and wealth and work-life balance, DE&i, and the learning development. 90% of Gen Z workers desire to work and value human connection in their professional environment. 60% of Gen Z employees express a desire to have clarity on the expectations and parameters of their job. And 60% of Gen Z workers want direct, frequent communication and check in with their supervisors for performance valuation. Interesting enough, not the stereotype that Gen Z care a lot about salary. According to Handshake, which is an American publication, 70% of Gen Zers put pay/salary as their top aspect they want from their next job, where millennials are now talking more about work-life balance, etc. So lots and lots of stats coming out. And again, I'll post those links that you can grab those links from there. Okay, so today I'm joined by Paul and Dave from the Jump team. And I expect today to be quite an interesting conversation, because I'm hoping that we're going to have a little bit of togetherness, maybe a little bit of disjointedness, but I think and I'll use it as disjointedness. I think we need to sort of really hit this nail on the head, and I'm hoping that we're not all going to be in sync. I hope that we're going to have challenges from different directions. And again, if everyone wants to join in and ask questions, then feel free to do so, because I think it's really important that we understand we're recruiting for ourselves. So we are good recruiters, but according to the stats, 43% attrition rate in the recruitment industry says we're poor at recruiting for ourselves. So the question is, why do you think recruitment agencies in general have such a poor record for recruiting for themselves?
I'd say, in a word, desperation. I think that very often recruitment people are desperate to fill a seat. And, it's very hard to find good quality staff, full stop, and we know that because we're in that market in relation to helping our clients. So there's a candidate shortage, and the recruitment industry is not exempt from candidate shortage. There's a shortage of people that are that want to get involved in our sector and our industry sector, and it's impacting us too. So I think that it's perfectly understandable that we get ourselves into a position where we desperately need to fill a seat, and we grab very often somebody that seems to be the right person, and we do that with a level of anxiety, because typically that person that we're considering strongly is being considered very strongly by our competitors. So we race into making decisions and we fail to follow due process. That tends to be the reason I think that we consistently take people on that aren't going to make it. I heard somebody at an expo recently saying take 2 people on to find one. That it's a strong statement, isn't it? It's saying that we expect 50% attrition. It's not a good place to be. I'm not thrilled with that statement.
Dave?
Yeah, good luck finding 2 people in one go.
Well, there you go. Good point. It's a good point.
I think many recruiters, and this is a general statement, but many recruiters or managers now have been recruiters. That's one of the joys of working in the recruitment industry. You've got people who have come through being a consultant, being a manager, a director, and they've gone to set up in their own business. And each of us have got a certain way of doing things. And my experience of seeing some of the people that managers and directors hire is that they reflect very much what it is about the manager. What made the manager, the director, the owner successful? They look for those skills in the people they're hiring. And if they don't see them, they don't hire them. And if they do see them, then they hire them. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And I've always found it an anomaly that as a recruitment company, we have such a high retention rate in recruitment because that's our job. And I think some of it, and I don't know the answer because it's a myriad of different reasons why, but I think a lot of it is we tend to hire in our own likeness, the way that we did things, the way that we could do things, the way that we want to do things, and then we tend to hire those people. And as you said, Paul, often it can be desperation because the biggest cost to us as a recruitment company is an empty desk. So therefore you want to fill that desk and you just want to get the right person on board. And I know some companies absolutely have a policy of we'll hire as many as we can, and all those that don't work, whether it's 10%, 20%, 50%, 80%, we'll just get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's some policy. Where some companies have a policy, we will only hire exactly the right person, and they can wait 6 months to make a hire.
So I think I look at it in a slightly different viewpoint. So I don't disagree. I think desperation massively comes into towards the end. But I think generally what you're saying there, Dave, and what I'm going to say here is that as a recruitment agency, I don't think we really understand what we're looking for. We're too busy trying to find the skills that fit rather than find the person that's got the right value proposition or the right will to do the job. And therefore, we're looking for the wrong person. So I think the reason why we've got a poor recruitment record is that our own recruitment structure and strategy is actually flawed. And because of the flaw in that strategy, we constantly hear, I've recruited the wrong person, I've recruited the wrong person. Where my view is you've not recruited the wrong person because that person got through your recruitment strategy. Therefore, your recruitment strategy has thrown out the right person because you employed them. The fact that you now are saying that the wrong person says that it's not the person that's wrong, it's the strategy in the first place. So I think we have this very lapsical sort of way of recruiting people where we recruit people based on their skill sets rather than what they can actually give the business. And what we tend to do is, rather than looking to find the gaps in our business where we need to strengthen, we just recruit people into our business where they're going into a gap or where they're going to go add to the strength. And what we do is recruit on skills rather than recruit on behaviors. And therefore we get churn and burn. And that stat that really stood out to me, which was 52% of new hires are actively looking for a new job within the first 6 months on the job, says do not know what you're looking for. And we sell a dream to recruit to new people coming to the marketplace, but we can then never deliver that dream back to them, and therefore they go. And that 52% in the first 6 months is probably what recruitment is really like, because we see so many people move on in that first 6 months.
And I think there's a wider point here, Howard, and I hope I'm not jumping on, but I think also the expectation of the workforce and the workplace has changed anyway. So a lot of people joining recruitment are joining for a job. They're not joining to be leaders in recruitment. They take a job, and if they kind of like it, they'll stay, and if they don't, they won't. But they just see it as a job for the next 12 months. I can tell. I know of at least 5 or 6 people who have joined recruitment companies this year. Yeah, who are just, they're dipping their toe in the water. It's a reasonable salary. They don't really know whether they'll make it or not, but they don't care. If they're successful, that's fine. If not, they go and find another job. And if by the age of 30 they've had 7 or 8 jobs, that doesn't bother them. Absolutely doesn't bother them at all. So therefore, it makes the function more difficult.
Yeah, but if our recruitment process was strong enough, we should be able to weed those people out to eliminate them from our recruitment process.
But I think that's more. I think that's the majority of the workforce today.
Potentially, certainly Gen Z.
Interesting comment. Interesting comment.
Yeah. So we preach then quality candidates to our clients, not quantity. So why is it the recruitment agencies get desperate, as you said, Paul, to fill a seat?
Well, I mean, we've addressed that in a large way because, as you've said, Dave said it. Having an empty desk is for a prolonged period of time is disastrous. We would hope that most desks would produce 120, 150,000 pounds. Obviously, top billers go beyond that point. You could argue brand new people, no experience, first year, 80,000. Most people will be nodding their heads. It sounds about right, Paul. So having an empty desk for a prolonged period is costing us a lot of money. And of course, the knock-on is there as well, because other people have to, pick up the slack. You are not necessarily filling, as we've already said on this, obviously, we're not filling as many vacancies as we should, therefore disappointing more candidates and clients and so on. It's not good. So naturally, we want to fill those seats. We really do. And Dave said, if you can find 2 people. So there's a sense that, just finding one person who ticks most of the boxes is somebody we're going to grab. And as I said, we're aware that other agencies, particularly if they're coming from a rec to rec, are also interested in that candidate. So it's what I said. It's just trying to find the right person as quickly as we can. And, there's a tendency too often to take somebody on just to put a bum on a seat, essentially, and then we regret that later. Now, you made a very valid point, Howard, and I was going to say this myself, that, what we should be recruiting on our behaviours and values. It's really, really important to make sure that the person we bring in is going to fit with our culture, fit with the people around us, that they're people we're going to enjoy working with every day. Because if there's a misalignment of behaviours and values, then it doesn't matter how talented the individual is or is likely to be, it isn't going to work. And I think the other thing is emotional intelligence. We'll talk perhaps a bit more about that later. And yeah, I think people, when they interview, don't necessarily probe into those 2 spaces to any great depth. What they're looking for, qualifications, previous experience, and so forth. And I think, as you said correctly, you've got to look at what is it you need to get this job done correctly, and not just in terms of skill set to do the job properly, but also their ability to meld with other people in the organization, someone you're going to love working with each day. And that's super important.
Yeah. And I think as well, we talk about recruiters as if there is just one type of recruiter.
Yeah. The
buying behavior of our clients has changed completely. Some recruiters now are resources. All they do is, and rightly, all they do is find talent. They build relationships with talent, and then somebody else will place that talent, or they'll have a relationship with an RPO, or they'll have a new business focus, but they won't do the filling of the jobs. So actually, when we're recruiting for recruiters, when you look at what we want them to do, there's a myriad of different things that being a recruitment consultant in 23 means, as opposed to being a recruitment consultant in 2017. And if you're hiring, you've got to know exactly what type of person or company that recruiter is going to be facing. Are they a relationship based? Is it a portal based? Because some people will have a really good dynamic and attitude and behaviors for portal based recruitment, but they will get frustrated if they want to go and see the customer, if they want to go and see the candidate. Because if they're just dealing with numbers and portals, then they're going to get frustrated. but we tend to hire when we have a vacancy. So it doesn't necessarily always align with the vacancy we've got, is actually what the customer is buying. So I think we have an onus to be careful of the type of people we're hiring, because I'm a believer that you can train recruitment. It's much more difficult to train attitude and behaviour. Now, Heather isn't on here. She may be shooting me down from Sutton Coldfield and saying, no, you can do both. But my experience is I've always preferred to hire on attitude than skills, because the skills, frankly, the skills just aren't there at the moment. So we've got to create the skills and hire on the attitude and behaviours.
So Ashley's put a question in the box, which we're going to answer later because we've got lots of things that's going on from there. But Mark has agreed with you, Dave. So round of applause for Mark and Dave. There's a first.
Agreeing with Dave,
yeah. But you're right. There's a lot of people passing through recruitment, but it's up to us as a company and leaders to promote as a profession with values that people will want to stay in, like accounting and lawyers. And absolutely. And John's comment, and I did read the first word and thought, oh, what's that about? Cobblers was his first word, but it's cobblers and shoes. Sometimes recruiters aren't strict at following the same hiring process. And that's right. I don't think we are as strict on hiring our own process, because we get blinded by somebody who walks through the doors and says, I've got the skill set to actually bill £500,000 or whatever it is. Okay. Where my total comment is absolutely, hire on values and behaviors. Have they got the values and behaviors that we want them to have to match and align with our business? And then have they got the will and desire to do the job? And that job is then selling that job correctly to them and then promoting the professionalism of your business and how that business works. And I think you've got to really look at the values of your leadership team and what they have, because that then drifts right down the business. So I think the desperation to get that seat filled is that desperation to earn money, because we know how much we lose from not having an empty seat, rather than thinking about, let's take our time, put the right person in the seat, and therefore the generation will come back quickly and over a longer period of time, rather than putting the wrong person in the seat, not actually creating any revenue, but then having to create a loss, then having to regenerate it, and regenerate it. So I think we've got to get our recruitment process right, and we've got to become a little bit stringent in what we're looking for. So our values and the will to do the job, because I always say you can have the right values and the right skill set, but if you haven't got the will to do the job, you'll never do it. You can have the right wills and the right skills to do the job, but if you haven't got the right values, then you'll become a proper pain in the butt to you as an employer, etc. So get the first two right, the right values and the right will. And as you said there, Dave, you can absolutely train recruitment.
Yeah.
So the question goes, okay, and we hear this all the time, we've recruited the wrong person, okay? And I think we've started to touch on this. Why is that such a wrong statement?
Well, look, I mean, what does it mean, the wrong person? Whenever people leave, and again, I'm sure I could see everybody, I'd see heads nodding. I would say 80% of the time people leave a business, or we ask them to leave. After they've gone, there's always a conversation about they weren't right. They were never right. We never thought they were right. From day one, I thought they were wrong. And the conversation tends to center on their personalities, the lack of fit for the business, that culturally they weren't aligned, values weren't correct, their behaviors were wrong, and so on. Very rarely do I hear people talking about their ability to do the job. Dave's point about being able to teach people is correct. And your point, Howard, about having the will to succeed, that resilience, that attitude to get things done, those things are super important. So then you go back to the point, I mean, how do you understand whether people have the right values and behaviors? How do you understand that they've got high levels of emotional intelligence? And I think that that's the thing you've got to really look for. Now, I would always advocate that it's worth considering psychometric testing as part of the interview process. Is not as expensive as people think. I would suggest that a good set of psychometrics, probably in the order of around £100-ish. Gosh, that's nothing in comparison to what it's going to cost us to take on the wrong person. I think also to look at asking the individual that you're interested in to do a presentation I'm always keen to see how people do on those things. I've interviewed people that have come on very well in the interview, invite them back to do a presentation. I've been appalled at how poor the presentation's been. You know, I'm looking at that individual and I'm asking myself, would I buy from this person? The same is true in reverse. People have often been a bit shy, a bit reticent during the interview process, but we've been interested enough to invite them back. We ask them to do a presentation and they do great. They really seem to flourish. Things that I would ask on a presentation would be to get them to do some research into our particular vertical. What do they know about our vertical? What do they know about our business? Have they learned enough about our company? How do we compare to our competitors, in their opinion? What do they think the recruitment market is going to look like in our sector, particularly over the next 24, 36 months? Get them to do some research. And then I think ask them to talk about themselves a little bit and what help and assistance they're going to need from us in the first 100 days. Why would we take them rather than anyone else we're prepared to consider? So how do they close? How do they sell themselves? And I would give them 3 days maximum to prepare the presentation, because I want to see them working under pressure. How do they deal with short timelines? How do they cope with deadlines? I'm interested in that. Are they prepared to put themselves out, work till the early evening, even early morning, to prepare a presentation to bring along? I don't care about the level of PowerPoint skills. I'm interested in how they perform. And I'd have a panel. Not just me interviewing. I'd be interested in 1 or 2 other people joining me on that panel to assess that individual. And there's a lot of things I think you can do, not least competency-based questions, that will start to flush out the individual and their behaviors and values, because past behavior is a very clear indication of future behavior. Of course, the other things naturally go alongside that, trying to take up references, testimonials from previous employers and so forth.
So to move you on, Paul, because you've now answered questions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
you
9,
know
10,
me,
and 11.
Howard, you know, let's do this.
I love sending questions to you guys that you never read, but that's there. So Dave, why is it the wrong comment that we've recruited the wrong person?
I'm going to misuse a quote from one of my heroes here. So the great Billy Connolly said, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothes."
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and the same does apply in some respects to recruitment. We haven't necessarily hired the wrong person. It's just that person isn't in our business. We say dismissively they're the wrong person, but what is it that they are seeking? And all of your stats from before, Howard, gives an indication of what that person is looking for, as well as what we're looking for. And if those two align, we won't hire the wrong person, because if we've got the management skills within the company and the leadership skills, then those people should flourish. I do have a more supportive eye on those who are older that we should be bringing into recruitment, because I think the younger generation, and I'm not meaning to be dismissive or discourteous in any way, but I think those that are looking to pass through recruitment don't share some of the longer term values of any company, whether it's recruitment or not. They're just trying to see if they can find the right approach. There is a whole talent pool of people, 50 plus, who know exactly what the world of work is like, who have been to work, who have failed and succeeded, that we sometimes tend to dismiss because they're a bit older. But with the new hybrid working, I think the way that our customers buy, aligned to the fact that a hybrid working can work for that community of people, can attract a whole new generation of people to recruitment that perhaps we wouldn't consider, but they understand that it is about bad weather and the wrong clothes. They understand that actually they want to work, they've made that decision, and they would enjoy being led well, being managed well, being part of a company that has purpose, that feeds their emotional, their personal needs and their business needs. And I think sometimes we're not even looking into that talent pool, and we should.
So I think it's all of what we said there, but I think it's vanity. It's the vanity of saying that our processes aren't wrong. it's the person that's wrong. So when we have a problem, we blame the person rather than looking back at our processes and readdress our processes. So I think until we start to address our processes, so all the things about competency-based interview questions and building all those things that we're going to move on to, they are absolutely part of the solution, but we've got to look at the vanity of saying that our processes are wrong rather than the sanity of saying the person that's wrong, because the sanity is it's the processes and not the other way around. And I think what we do is that what we're too poor at doing is addressing poor behavior or poor competencies early enough to then stop them happening. So once we've recruited them, but we could be addressing those during the interview process by trying to highlight them in the interview process, and therefore they never get into our business. But once they get into our business, if we don't address them early, then they become the norm, not just for the person that's brought those competencies and processes in, but other people see that they can be the norm. So here's a question that I'm going to ask Dave rather than ask you, Paul, because you'll be interesting there. So the question is then,
what did I say?
Well, if you listen to the question, Paul, you'll understand this. When looking at the recruitment agency's internal recruitment strategy, what would be the first thing that you would address? Which I think you answered in the last question, Paul.
Well, I can answer this, Paul.
Well, let's let Dave answer the question.
And Howard, this may seem like a bit of a dismissive answer, but most recruitment companies that I know don't have a recruitment strategy. What they have is a budget which says we'll hire 5 people, and they'll go and hire 5 people, or whatever the number is. But that isn't a people-based strategy that fits in with their purpose for the next, their purpose, their mission, their vision, and underpinning that, the values and their people. And that's what I would mean is a recruitment strategy. It's actually a people strategy, of which retention and hiring is just a part of it. And if you have something like that that's documented, that's a living, breathing document, it doesn't matter whether you're a 5-person company, a 50-person company, or you're Hayes or Spring or Randstad or whatever, you can then see where it all fits, where all the people, because it's then about the whole workforce. And I think that becomes part of a recruitment strategy. That's what, for me, that's what a proper recruitment strategy would be, because it looks at retention, it looks about progression, it looks about the customer, the way that they buy, and the way that the market is changing, and technology, and all of that. So I think you've got to have a proper recruitment strategy rather than a budget that says you're going to hire X number of people.
So I think I completely agree with that, because that's where I would start with the recruitment strategy and get a stronger recruitment strategy based on what you look. And what you mentioned there was what's your purpose, what's your mission, how people fit into that purpose and mission. If you look at most recruitment agencies, to be the best at this and to be the best at that, well, if it's the best at this and the best at that, but you're recruiting staff that are second rate, and you potentially know that, you're just trying to put a bum on a seat, then you're going against your strategy. So your strategy is right, but your execution of that strategy is poor. The people don't like it because you don't like it as an employer. Your clients and candidates don't like it because you're not great for the client, and therefore it doesn't drive cash into your business. So when we look at a process, strategy, execution, people, and cash, 2 of those things are massively flawed, because your execution of the strategy is very poor and people don't like it, because you've got someone in the business that's not right. That upsets other people in the business that don't like that, and it slows the whole business down. So I think getting that recruitment strategy is absolutely right. So the first thing I would address is understand what type of person that you want. How will that person fit into your mission and your vision and your purpose of the business? How are you then going to question that person to evaluate whether they have the right values and will to do the things in your business that you want them to do before we even start to talk about skill? They're the bits that I would initially change and start to drive that, working from there. And so, Paul, I'm going to ask the next question, because I think you're going to help with the next question from there. So if those are the golden keys to start the recruitment strategy, how do you recruitment agencies then attract the best talent on the marketplace and interview that talent to make sure that they are being an added addition to the business rather than just an anchor to the business.
Okay, just before I do that, and I will do that, just a couple of extra points to add to what you guys have just said, and that is that you've also got to think about, do we want 360-degree recruiters? Do we want to bring people in to do certain things rather than try and do everything, which I think begins to help to address the issue of finding someone that's apparently capable of doing everything that we need them to do. A great 360-degree recruiters have always been in short demand. It's very difficult to find them. And I think a lot of recruitment businesses now have come around to that realization and are bringing people in as resources, candidate care managers, and so forth. So I think there's some questions to ask about what we're looking for and whether we can simplify the process by looking for skill sets that are perhaps a little bit easier to identify and bring into our company. And then if people have got the ability, we can move them, and they want to move forward, then we can move them from a resourcer role. The second thing I'd add is that I think consistency. So the other thing, I don't think you guys said this, but making sure you have a nailed down process that works across the whole business, because too often people do their own thing. Different directors, different managers, divisional leaders will recruit in their own style. There's no consistent pattern across the business. It makes it very hard under those circumstances to identify where we're getting things wrong when people are left to their own thing. So having a level of consistency, nailing down the process, making sure everybody follows that process so that you can step back from it, having monitored it, to establish whether it's working for you or it needs tweaking and so forth. I think those two things are super important.
And I completely agree there. And just to sort of jump in and add to that point, is what we're talking about though, Paul, is find the people. So that there should be a strategy that identifies, is that a 360 person? Yeah. But when we're looking at what are gaps in the business, is it 360? Is it just sales? Is it candidate generation? Exactly. They will have different values and different needs and different will, but also different skill sets. So there has to be a different recruitment structure or questioning strategy for each of those type of people. And you're right, the consistency then of running that right across the business is absolutely important. So your comment about having a 2 or 3 people in that final interview, maybe scoring people as they go through that creates the consistency. So you can look at, I might score it 1, you might score it 10. We can look at why that difference is.
Yeah, exactly.
But what we should be doing is having that consistent approach from there. So so I think part of that. So let's talk about then how
do I attract the best talent, as you asked. So perhaps I could just kick that off quickly, and that's I think you need advocates in your business. We need advocates. We need people in our business to a large extent that are consistently talking to family, friends, relatives, candidates, clients, screaming from the rooftops what a brilliant place it is to work in our particular company. How many times have you heard clients talk about bounty schemes, for example, incentive schemes, money available to their staff to find people that will work there? And how many times have you recognized they don't work? They only work when people are really in love with the business and truly believe in the company and its vision and its values and feel super excited and bought into where the company is going. It works then because people are passionate about their organization, passionate to bring others in around them. So one of the great ways, I think, of bringing people into your business is, and this comes back to a point that was made, you've got to be, as a leader, making sure that people are following you and that they see long-term career opportunities for themselves. They're excited with their futures. They're excited at the way they're treated by their employers, how great it is to work in that particular environment. And they want to tell the world about it. When you've got advocates in your own business telling the world what a brilliant business you are, what a great place it is to work in, you're on the right path. And I think too often we don't establish that to the extent that we should. We shouldn't really need to offer people money to get them to introduce people into our companies. They should want to do it because it's such a great place to work in. I'm giving that as an example, but I do think advocacy is super important if you're looking to get people to join your organization.
So it's interesting that one of the things that I've been saying to some of my clients at the moment about their purpose and their mission is, how do they know it works? And they're saying, well, we get testimonials. And I'm saying, yes, you do get testimonials from candidates, but they are solicited testimonials because you go and ask for them. I'm going to ask you, how often do you get unsolicited testimonials from your candidates and your clients? Because the same thing should be happening about your recruitment process, your onboarding, your training, that you should be getting unsolicited praise from your staff about how you're treating them and how you're developing them. That starts to say that you've got a good culture. So I think attracting the best marketplace and the best talent in the marketplace is understanding the EVP that you've got within your business to enable it to go outside into the marketplace. However, people only know how much you care once you show them how much you care. And I think when people walk into a room, you can pick up instantly what type of vibe, what type of culture it is really, really quickly. You can also pick that up by the questions that you ask in your recruitment process and how challenging you are. And it's interesting that the more challenging that you become in the recruitment process on the right things, the more people want to come back and work for you because you were really challenging on the values, the propositions, the wills. It wasn't about the skill. It was about them as a person fit rather than about them as a skill fit to the business. And that's where I think that, when I was sort of in that position of recruiting people, people came back and I said, first thing I said, well, how do you think the first interview went? And they go, it was really, really hard. What did you dislike about it? We didn't like dislike about it. What we liked was you challenged us on our personalities rather than challenging us on our skills. And so the first one was all about personality, getting the right person through the door. The second one was a bit more skill, but it was still more personality and will. And then it was skills from there. So I think to me, the golden key for attraction is people feeling that vibe. And you'll feel that vibe by the EVP that you put out there. And so unsolicited testimonials will start to tell you that you are on the right tracks. Dave?
Yeah, I think for me, there's two ways because we know it's a talent short market. So for me, I would be promoting recruitment over promoting your company. So I am very proud to say the work that we do in recruitment is absolutely vital and absolutely first class. And we need to be shouting from the rooftops about recruitment, why it matters, what we do. The fact that there are thousands of recruitment companies, that's another thing. So firstly, promote recruitment and then promote the only thing that you've got that's different to everybody else, which is your culture. So I would be promoting our sector, our industry, and then I would be individually as a recruitment company promoting your culture. I did a thing with Corn Ferry yesterday, and they had a survey of 500 CEOs, not just in recruitment, but across the world. And they said they attributed 50% of the market value of their business to their culture. Whatever they did, the culture was the glue that mattered. So I would be promoting culture. And I would ask yourselves as a leader 3 questions that you need to answer for the people you're hiring. How can I help you live your best life? How can I help you do your best work? How can we together fulfill your purpose? And if you can answer those 3 questions in the interview with the people as you promote your culture, you're going to get more sticky people. And also interview people from all ages. Don't just interview newbies coming into the industry.
Interesting. So it sort of leads to that sort of viewpoint, doesn't it? That, what are we trying to get from people? What do we want to get from people? And so if we look at Gen Zs, because let's look at it, Gen Zs are going to be our really, the candidate pool that we're looking at. Okay. We often talk about Gen Zs. They haven't got what it takes. They're an entitled, bunch of people, etc. But they are our candidate pool. So how do we address the Gen Zs and other generational candidates to ensure that we recruit the best of the generations that are out there available to us?
I think I think that this slide here with this particular statement is very true. You can have the best strategy and the best building in the world, But if you don't have the hearts and minds of the people who work with you, none of it comes to life. And it's back to this cultural point. Often we talk about Gen Y, Zs, and so forth. Whenever I've heard these stories about Gen Zs or whatever other generation, X, Ys, and Zs, I've always thought, I think this is nonsense, because a lot of the things that apparently they hold dear, that they want to see within a workplace, I feel the same way about. And I'm a baby boomer, so I'm not sure. It's the attitudes of the Gen Zs is significantly different from people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, as I am. So I think it comes down to creating, as you said, Howard, an employer value proposition, an EVP, that retains people, attracts and retains people. It gives people the opportunity to build a long-term career. They're excited by the values and the vision and the mission of the business. And the content of the work that they're dealing in is, to a large extent, very satisfying. They find it fulfilling. Too often, I think, if you think about our industry, we focus on, you said it earlier, Howard, about why people are so anxious to get people in, making money. Well, we know that's why we're in business. But, I think when you speak to experienced people that have been in the industry a long time, yes, they make a lot of money and they've got a great living out of the job. But actually, if you ask them where they really get fulfillment, it isn't from that position. It's from the position of feeling great about helping people find great jobs. It's about really providing brilliant solutions to clients. It's using their intellect to overcome problems, to find solutions for people around them that make a difference in those individuals' lives. And I think, if I think of my own career over the years, I've been fortunate to have been in the industry 46, 47 years now. It's a long time. But my happiest memories are not related to the big salary checks I received. I can't remember what they were now. It's related to how I helped develop people. It's related to brilliant relationships I had with clients, projects that we developed that worked brilliantly, candidates when I was a youngster as a consultant placed in jobs. It's those things. So I think if you're going to address how we attract people, don't sell just purely on, we can provide you with a great amount of money. Don't forget, a lot of these youngsters are still living at home. They're not bothered about it that much. My experience of the Gen Zs is that actually offering them huge amounts of money, it doesn't seem to be a turn on for them. They're going home, their washing's done, the food's on the table. They've got enough money to enjoy themselves at the weekends and so forth. What they're looking for is more than that. They're looking for some place they can put their roots down where they feel a part of something exciting.
Dave?
And surely, if we are going to hire on attitude and skills, age becomes less important.
Yes.
So we can look for more diverse candidates. We can look for candidates in a different talent pool, returners to work, an older generation, maybe people our age, because they're there to do a job for our customers. We will grow our businesses by building strong relationships with our customers, understanding what they need, how they need it, what's happening with their workforce. So therefore, we need a group of people who can entertain and hold those conversations. Of course, we've got to find those people in the first place. But I don't buy into the fact that we need to necessarily hire Gen Z. If you want to go and hire 10 people this year, you're more likely to go into some other talent pools and other communities than you are chasing after the same people that everybody else is chasing after. Because if you get them with the right attitude and you get them with the right behavior and you can train the skill,
yes, right,
then it matters less. And I think sometimes we turn that off.
I think you're spot on about that, Dave. We talk about gender blend and so forth. We should really be talking about age blend as well. You're absolutely spot on with that point.
But I think what we're talking about is generation blend there, Paul. And I think I'm agreeing with both of you here, but I think we look at it in a very different way, is that what we do is we blame the Gen Zs for being poor, and then we become very blinkered about whether there are any good people within that Gen Z market. But then that blinkers us for the whole markets, where if we become a little bit more open and say we've got to try and find the people with the right values and the right will, then it takes a little bit longer, but then we'll have a bigger candidate pool because Gen Z, baby boomers, Gen X, etc., all come into it rather than anything else. And that's the bit that we've got to start to understand, is that, yes, there are entitled people at my age. There are entitled people in every generation.
Yes, right.
Okay. It's just that they've got a bigger platform to show their entitlement nowadays through social media. So there are still people out there with the same value proposition that you have. It's just you've got to go and find those people, because they're the ones that probably aren't shouting about the entitlement. So, it's them that are being quiet, and therefore you've got to dig harder. So the final question then, the interview process. What's key to ensuring that only the best end up on a seat in your office?
Okay, so, this goes against, that sense of desperation. I always think hire slowly. And I don't mean, dead slow, but I do mean take your time. Make sure that you consider this person very carefully. Take them through the processes we've talked about. And yes, you run the risk you may lose one or two people. I accept that. But I think that racing into making decisions quickly and taking shortcuts in the process is going to cost you very often dear later on. People are the biggest investment we have in our industry. We're not making widgets. We're not bringing people onto a conveyor belt. We're looking for very specific personality types, specific levels of emotional intelligence, behaviors, values, all the things we've talked about. You're not going to find that out in the space of a very short conversation with you feeling compelled to make a quick decision. You need time. You need other people involved in the process, and you need to think very carefully and thoroughly about the individual. And where you have a doubt, as we used to say when I was playing football, kick it out. Don't do it if you have concerns. How often have we all said after the event, I knew it. I had this bad feeling about this person from the first time I met them. We've all done that. Listen to your instincts, and instincts, by the way, equates to experience. Listen to what your head is telling you. If they don't feel right, chances are they're not. So give yourself some space and time. I'm talking a week or so, 2 weeks perhaps, but don't race into it. That's my opinion. And I think where we do, we often step back and regret our hasty decisions.
But I even think that's part of the recruitment process as well. How many times in that recruitment process do you think, I'm not too sure this person fits? And then someone says, no, I think this, and you let that person, but then you dwell on why that person doesn't fit. And it was interesting when I was pulling the slide deck together, this comment here, don't hire the man who does your work for money, but hire him who does it for love.
Yeah.
Because so many people, find the job you love and you never have to work a day of their life. This was written in 1817. Hence why it's not a picture; it's a drawing of the actual person who said it.
I was in recruitment then,
Yeah, quite possibly. That was your 50th year in recruitment, Paul.
That's about that time. I'm more Gen nearly dead, rather than Gen dead.
but what it says is that find the job that you love has been round for a long, long time. It has been round for an awful long time, and yet we're still trying to shoehorn people into a job that they don't really love.
Yeah, but most of the people who we're hiring don't know whether they love the job or not. They don't even know whether they love work. So we're not going to find people who love it. Instead of looking for the best people, we should be looking for the right people that fit our culture. We should be looking for people who can learn and who can grow with the organization. Because if you can learn, then we can train the skills that we need. If they've got the right attitudes and behavior, if they fit with our culture, then they're more likely to be successful, whatever age they are. If we're always looking for the best person, we're unlikely to find them. If we're looking for the right cultural person, we're more likely to have success.
So get the right person on the bus and then make sure they're in the right seat, is what we're saying. And I think that's find the person who loves your culture, loves your business. We can then train them to do what they want. That's, to me, is what I would be looking for all the way through. So I think it's been a very interesting conversation today about looking at culture, looking at people, looking at how we recruit those people in there. We have to then create the process to do that. So, I think recruitment has an opportunity to move forward. It was interesting. I was on a LinkedIn profile yesterday, and the manager put out a call, shot a video. I had a call today from a recruiter trying to pull a job from me. He said, oh my God, is this still happening in today's marketplace? So it is about the right culture, the right values. Get the right values first, get the right people first in the business, then train them to do the right things, and we can move forward from there. So next week, Ladies and gents, next week we have Neil Carberry on from the REC to give us a state of the recruitment nation and what's happening in 2023. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation with what Neil has to say about the marketplace, where the marketplace is going, what's changing in the marketplace since he was on about a year ago. So please join us next week. Paul, Dave, as always, thanks very much for your
Thanks,
input.
guys.
Always
Thank you.
much appreciated.
Carpe
Ladies and
diem,
gents,
as Paul said.
say again.
Carpe diem.
Carpe diem. There you go, Dave.
So, ladies and gents, thanks very much. I will see you all next week, and I'll leave you on that carpe diem. Seize the day, unless you've got an apple top, Dave?
That's it. Always like to finish with a bit of Welsh.
Catch you later.
Cheers, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.